Welcome to the Holistic Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Keisha Blair, wife, mother of 3, author of Holistic Wealth, and founder of the Institute on Holistic Wealth. The show will showcase various experts in the key pillars of holistic wealth. Each week, we deliver the best information on how to become holistically wealthy and live your best life. Today, we have a very special guest with us. We have Marcio Santos, and Marcio is the founder of Nerd Digital, and he trains his clients, or he advises his clients on how they can scale their online course to 6 figures. So that's a great topic if you're interested in that today. Marcio, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Keisha. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm excited to learn more from you and to share as much as I can.
Absolutely. And likewise, I'm glad you're here to share because I'm an online course creator, of course. You know, due to my book, Holistic Wealth, people came back demanding a course. So I created a certification program. So I'm eager to hear from you. And I've checked out your blog and it's amazing. There's some amazing case studies there. I've read several already. And so I know you have deep expertise in all things related to course creation and launching and SEO, which I'm, a big fan of as well. So can you just start with giving us a bit of your backstory, how you got started in this field and your journey so far?
Yes, for sure. So I got started, over a decade ago doing basic digital marketing stuff. So web and graphic design, slicing images so that they can be used on websites. And then I moved from there on to creating learning courses. So I created some learning materials for a course. From there, I worked in more like communication design, so designing websites and newsletters and things like that. Later on, I got into more marketing work, working at an agency where I worked for brands like BMW, Western Union, Scotiabank, Bank of Montreal. I kind of was feeling a little bit, let's say, overworked, right? Working around the clock at the agency, and my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease at the time. And I made the decision that I wanted to be, with her as much as I could. So I quit my job, and then I just started doing consulting. I went back to web and graphic design, did some jobs on that, and then started studying a lot of digital marketing. So SEO, paid advertising, email marketing, content marketing, a whole bunch of things. And I worked in that for 5-6 years strictly in that scope of being a consultant. I was able to work with a company called Kettle Fire, which taught me a lot. And just by accident, I happened to get hooked up with a course creator through my network. And that's really where it started. This was just a year ago.
That's amazing. And I'm still thinking about your mom, as you said that, her diagnosis with Alzheimer's, because we've had so many guests who've, kind of changed their careers or changed their lifestyle, me included, because of a sudden illness or sudden death. And those stories are always most powerful, because it's amazing the sacrifices that we all make. And so I just wanted to go further into the course creation bit of it. I stated earlier that for me, in terms of my journey as a course creator, my book was kind of the impetus for that course being launched. I mean, the demand came from readers. Of course, when I launched the book, I thought, it's nonfiction. I probably should create some courses at some point, but I didn't realize it would happen like that with readers coming to demand it. And so at the first half of lockdown, I sat down and penciled it out for about 6 months and then launched the course. So I wanted to get from you in terms of, people knowing, how will other people want this course? Am I creating something that somebody else wants, or is it just me? Because the demand for me came through the book. But can you tell us, in your experience, how people can go about knowing that this will be something that somebody's willing to spend money on? Because I think that's the basic, right? In terms of even thinking about, okay, the launch strategy and what do I put in my course? The first bit of it is, well, will people even want this?
That's a very, very important question. And usually a question that many people, they'll begin creating a course without asking that question and without going deeper into those types of questions. And when I train my clients, there's a specific phase, which we call the first phase, the product phase, where we really dive deep into who your product is for, who your course is for, what does that avatar look like? Then we go into what is the key transformation that your course is offering to this person. And then 3 is how are we packaging this? How do we come up with the positioning statement that's clear and relevant to that avatar so that they're going to want to buy it? So that's an overview of the process. And one tactical thing that you could do, and it's similar, it's funny that you mentioned your book, because this is one of the things that I teach actually, is that you could use other books for sources of content for your course. So when we think about a course, I mentioned before that we have to think about what is that key transformation this person is looking to make, right? If we go to Amazon.com, for example, right, it's the world's largest bookstore, and we search for a book on your topic, and your topic, let's say, for example, could be gardening. And the objective of gardening is, I don't know, to have a beautiful garden for spring, right? So you can host your friends out in the garden or host a barbecue. You want to have a beautiful garden. Cool. So type in gardening under books on Amazon. And what will happen is you'll see a list of books. And the books, they'll start to show you different types of gardening books. Some might be for, multi-million-dollar type of gardens. Some might be do-it-yourself. Some might be a vegetable garden, a rose garden, different types of gardens. That will already show you what people are paying for already, right? You may think that, wait, Marcio, but these are books. I'm talking about a course. Yes, that's true. But the way that the books are still answering questions that people have, right? They're still trying to help people overcome certain obstacles. And the course does the exact same thing, except it does it in a different medium. The course essentially can be like a book. The book could be, like, as you said, the book can be more of like a blueprint for a course, right? So you could use other people's books as a measure to see whether or not your course would be interesting. So that's one way to look at it. And this goes kind of counterintuitively to what other people might think, because the first thought may be, well, Marcio, if there are a lot of books on topic X, and that's what I want to sell my course on, then there's too much competition. How do I stand out? And there are many different ways for you to stand out. I mean, one, you still have to get people's attention, which is a bigger conversation. And then you have to convert them into listening to you, which means to convert them into a lead and having a conversation with them. And so there's still going to be competition out there. But I guess the next conversation is, well, then how do you stand out?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's also great, especially when you look at the top best-selling, books that have been bestsellers and have really resonated with readers on a particular topic. I can see how that could be a really, really good strategy for people starting out. And of course, as course creators too, sometimes we get bogged down with content questions. Like, for instance, I remember when I was, drafting this certificate, because readers were like, yeah, we want to be certified holistic wealth consultants. So they didn't just want any ordinary course. They wanted a certification program, and they wanted something that would help them. Some of them were financial advisors, for instance. They wanted something to go above and beyond, to give something, more to their clients. So the question is, what do you decide, and how do you decide what to put in your course? I think people can get bogged down with content questions. And, your example of books, I think, is a very good example for this, because many people have that lead magnet. So there's the free mini course, and then they're like, well, how much do I put in the mini course versus, the big course, the larger course that I may want to charge in excess of $1,000, for instance. And of course, many people get bogged down with the figure too. And well, what am I offering for that? And who, was going to pay me for a course that costs that much?
Yeah, all important questions. And those are all the questions that we answer for sure. So one thing that I just observe what you asked in the conversation right now, there are a lot of questions packed together, a lot of doubts and a lot of ideas percolating. And a key important thing that you want to do whenever you're trying to tackle a new problem is to break that problem apart. And creating a course is one job. Launching a course is another job. And so if we remove the launch conversation for a second and just talking about a course creation, then I think it becomes a little easier to start with, right? So we talked about assessing the demand, which is, I'll give you one example of using Amazon to assess, whether there are other books on your topic and how interested are people in this topic, how many reviews are. You could look at that. What are the quality of the reviews? What's being said in the reviews? What are the chapters in the book? What are they covering? And what are they not covering? How old is the book? How new is the book? What are some trends? So there's a whole bunch of ways that you can figure out the content that you're going to put in there. When it comes to depth, one thing that I've seen that works really well is simply to think about the structure of your course in 9 modules. And 9 modules breaks down really easily into 3 phases. And the mind works really well with 3 things. If I say, for example, a sentence and I say, look, Keisha, even if it's a financial advice, I'm not a financial advisor, have no ideas about that. But if I were even to say something like, Keisha, if you really want to save enough to go to the World Cup with your family next year, you've got to reduce your spending, you've got to invest, and then you have to delegate. As long as I can come up with 3 ideas for that answer already sounds more intelligent than if I were to give you 10, or if I were to give you just 1. People can't remember 10, right? But they can remember 3. They can remember the 3 little betters. They can remember the 3 principles of physics. They can remember 3 whatever people can remember. So breaking things down into 9 modules usually fits really nicely into 3 phases, because then the conversation becomes, well, my course helps you get to this transformation. And we do that by getting you through phase 1, through phase 2, and through phase 3, right? So that's one good framework for you just to start with when you're creating your first course is that. And as you're ideating across these 9 modules, you want to do your research. And usually this research, the best place to start with this research is with, this one-on-one combat. If you service the client, if you've helped the client get a particular transformation before, then go back and see what were the steps that you helped this client with to get there. If you've never done that before, then that's a red flag, because it's like you're trying to create a course because people are making money online. I need an extra source of income. Whatever your reasons are, you're trying to come up with a course instead of trying to be useful. And that's not a good place to start, right? The whole purpose of a course is more about scaling your knowledge and scaling how you can help other people. And it's less about making money. Yes, that's a lagging indicator. If your course is successful, people enjoy it. And if you create that transformation, you're going to get some, the sales afterwards. But the idea should be to help. I think that's what you want to lead with. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's a good framework for sure. And it's simple, it's easy to remember, and it's also easy for, people checking out the course in terms of, the value added and whether or not they'll benefit from it. And, you mentioned metrics a while ago, which is so hugely important, because I think most course creators, or we see a lot of that online now, how I scaled to 6 figures, I got to 6 figures. And of course, that can be intimidating for some people just starting out. And, as a metric, as you mentioned, if you're not hitting that, then you might feel that you don't have a good course when in fact you do. So I just wanted to get into that, because I know that most people are interested in that scaling to 6 figures bit. And so let's say, we've gone through getting through the hurdle of figuring out that we have sufficient demand for this course, which is important. And we figured out the content needs. And now we're thinking about scaling based on your experience. And I know there are several different variables in this. I see people doing webinars and launches and massive launches. Can you kind of break down for us once the course is ready? And I know there's several aspects in terms of the website and the landing page, which also has to be the sales page, which also has to be good enough to convert leads to sales. But can you just break down what goes into this 6-figure launch? And I mean, how do people get there? How do they achieve this with their first course, this 6-figure launch out of nowhere? Can you just tell us, how people get there in the journey?
Yeah. So I would go back to the last part of my previous answer, which was you want to start with a real case study. You have to have proof that you've helped somebody get that transformation first. If you can do that, well, then the next question is, okay, well, how do I do this for 2, for 5, for 10, for 50, for 100 people? And you do that through a course. So there's 2 answers to this. One, it's you want to start from your experience, right? So packaging that experience, breaking it down and documenting all the steps, that's where you're going to get the course information, which is going to help you scale. Then the next part is going to be to put a group together, right? So when you're first creating your course, one thing is actually this is a bit of a false belief that if you build it, they will come. And the idea there is like, sure, I'll create my course and I just have to sell it to 100 people or 1,000 people and I'll, make 6 figures. But you can't just get people out of thin air, right? So unless you've helped people before, that's your first thing that you have to do. You have to go out and help more people. Now, let's say that you have helped more people, you have more case studies, and you've refined your model, then you can scale it. And then the scaling process is more mechanical than not. So the second phase of our training is the funnel phase. And the funnel phase is essentially building out a funnel, at least a very basic funnel that helps people, helps attract people to your website, helps convert them into a lead, nurture them so that they're ready for the next phase for your launch. But it achieves these 3 steps, right? So in order for you to do that, you need a lead magnet. You need to be able to write some decent copy. And then you need to be able to string these things together so that they all talk together and automatically transform this person from a random visitor that you've never heard of, that you don't know anything about, into a lead that's given you a first name and an email that you can start a conversation with them in the next launch phase. That's essentially like the phase 2. Phase 3, let's continue with this hypothetical idea where you then have, for example, there are many ways that you can go about this, but like one basic way is you have a nurture sequence email where you offer value to this person and you help them understand how you've helped other people, how you can help them. You try to start a conversation with this person. Maybe they reply to you, maybe they don't. You can try getting on a phone call with them. You can try inviting them to a group webinar, a live webinar. And throughout this process, what you're doing is you're building trust, you're building likability so that this person can then be more likely to purchase once you open cart. So that's like one rough, very basic 1.0 funnel that you could set up for your course launch.
Great. And so I'm wondering about people out there who want to launch courses, but are just not, for whatever reason, not interested in doing it via webinars or via other means. You mentioned group coaching as one option. And, it's so important to get feedback and to refine the course material. Most experienced course creators know, for instance, when I designed the certification program, I went through several different iterations with students because they came forward and requested it. So they had ideas, right? And they had ideas on what they wanted to see and what would be helpful out there, where the gaps were in the field and in the industry, and kind of where the information gaps were. And that's so important for like the group coaching. So I'm just wondering, in your mind, like if somebody does not like webinars or a group coaching kind of setup, have you seen other options for, launching and scaling your online course without those 2 components, or like different variations of them, like probably like one-on-one, instead of group coaching, one-on-one with several people over time to get feedback and to fine tune? Or, I know most 6-figure launches though come from some kind of live webinar setup. So I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of, is it that you have to have that webinar framework to have that 6-figure launch where you're speaking to 200 people and then X sign up and you get your 6-figure launch from that? And I know there's organic leads through SEO, and that's something I also want to talk to you about, but I'll let you lead us in terms of where we need to go, in terms of the options available.
So when it comes to a webinar, what you want to think about is that the webinar is a tool to scale yourself. Is to be able to scale your knowledge so that you present it to more people. The other thing is to realize that the webinar can be used in 2 different ways. One is you could use the webinar to attract people. So you can use them to, for example, let's say you just share on social media or you buy an ad to promote your webinar and you say, hey, join this webinar to get the exact framework that's going to help you improve your finances with Keisha Blair. And you'll do this in the next 7 days. You'll be able to save $7,000. That could be a webinar. And the whole purpose of that webinar is to start this conversation, because there's a few things you're going to do with there. You're going to attract some people, you're going to teach them, and then hopefully you're going to monetize a portion of that audience. So you can think about the webinar as living, let's say, middle of the funnel or top of the funnel, where you're attracting people in and you're having this conversation, then you convert them into a lead. That's the whole purpose of that webinar. The other purpose of the webinar could be to actually deliver your course. So your course could be delivered what we call an evergreen style. Maybe you record everything first, then you make it all available, and then people consume it as, whenever they want. Or you do more of like a webinar style. So you say, hey, everybody, I'm going to deliver my course on these days at this time, log in and we'll have a conversation then. So I think that's how webinars can be seen. That's what I've seen so far in the course world, but it is very effective. One thing that I've noticed a lot is that webinars are used mostly on the front end. to convert cold traffic into, leads and prospects and even buyers. Like there's, as you said, there's a small percentage of people that will buy on their first visit to a webinar, but more chances than not, what happens is if you deliver a 1-hour webinar, and the webinar is actually helpful, helps these people, your audience, get an understanding of their problem, getting understanding of, how they can solve it, give them that belief, show them a clear roadmap for how they can get to the other side. And then during the video, answer some questions that might challenge their trust in you. Those go a very long way to helping you stand out in their mind because you've now delivered value to them. You've now helped them with this idea, this problem that they've been struggling with, right? So if we're talking about finances, most people, they'll struggle with an area in their life for months, for years, without actually engaging that problem. They kind of want to sweep it under the carpet, want to put their head in the sand, and they want to deal with it. Whereas if they're on your webinar, you're offering them a solution right then and there. The webinar can talk them through it, and maybe you sell, maybe some people buy it, maybe some don't. But at least if you've converted them into a lead, you can then have a conversation with them after through email to convert them later during your launch as well. And so, yeah, that's how the two ways the webinars can be used. And webinars can be used both in evergreen, which are courses that kind of just sell forever, all the time. They're always open, or you can use them for course launches specifically.
And so I wanted to ask about organic traffic to your website. So, you've posted your course, you have your sales page up, and you want to get some organic leads and you want to rank in Google. So SEO is so important. And for most course creators, they have blogs as well, that they use to attract visitors. So I'm wondering if you have any advice, especially, with 2021, and I know things get updated very often with Google, with the algorithm as well. Any advanced techniques? Because it's so, it's so frustrating for people to Google SEO trends and Google SEO tactics, and you meet upon the same generic advice. It's the same generic advice. Put up a blog, mention some keywords, people will come, and then often people don't come, or often your article isn't ranking or not on the first page. So any advice for people listening in on using SEO and maybe some more advanced techniques on how they can leverage SEO to get that traffic and to get those, those page views and the rankings on Google?
Yeah, so I'll tell you that it's, doing SEO work is not easy for anybody. It's not easy for me. It's not easy for agencies. It's not easy for experts. It takes a lot of experience and it takes a lot of hard work. So if you're feeling that you're posting content, you're doing what you believe to be all the best practices, you're not getting results, don't feel frustrated. Don't beat yourself up because you're not alone. Okay, so first thing I'll say about that. The second is in terms of tips, if you're a course creator, the one thing that I'll tell you is that you're probably sitting on all the content that you ever need to create. And the reason why is if we go back to the previous idea about defining your 9 modules, each of your 9 modules should be created so that, or 10 modules or however many modules you have, they should each answer a specific challenge that your audience has. And each of those could be its own blog post, right? And you might think to yourself, well, wait a second, Marcy, if I just take my course material, create a blog post out of it and post it on the web, then am I not giving away all my course, right? And the answer to that is yes and no. I'll tell you a case study that can help you. So for one of our clients from Keisha from Radreads.co, he came to us a year ago and he had some SEO traffic and they're doing, several thousand visits per month. So they're already in a pretty good place, but he knew he was curious to see what we could do together. And I saw that he had more opportunity. His case, he already had a bunch of blog posts on his website. And one thing that you'll find, especially if you're running a WordPress website, is that WordPress encourages you, and a lot of the advice that you'll hear is to post more content, to use categories, and to use tags. What happens is when you use categories, a lot of categories, and you use a lot of tags, and when you post too much content, what happens is you can actually do yourself a disservice on the SEO side by having a site that's too big. So there's this important concept that, among SEOs that we call link juice. And link juice is the idea that people will link to your website. So let's say you post a valuable piece of content, or you go on a podcast and somebody links to your website from that podcast page, right? Each time somebody links to your website, what you're getting is you're getting some juice, some link juice to that page and to your domain as well, to your website. What you want to do is anytime you do receive a link, And you can check this with a tool like Ahrefs.com to see anybody that has links pointing back to you. What you can do is you can carefully pick where you send the additional link juice to. So let me give you a very clear example here. Let's say you have links pointing to your homepage of your website, and you just created a new blog post about a post-COVID financial recovery definitive guide. And you want to promote that. What you're going to do is you're going to make sure that you link from your homepage to this page, because what that does is it sends some of this juice that's collected on your homepage to this new page. And what that does is it signals to Google that this page is important. What you can then do is you can go out and reach out to your partners, your amplifiers, what we call amplifiers, and ask them, hey, so-and-so, I saw that you wrote about this topic, or I see that you have a page where you collect a lot of different articles on this topic. Why don't you add mine to your list? Because mine is also a very important, offers some very interesting perspective because it's related to post-COVID, it's helpful for women, and it's helpful for whatever X reason. And the owner of the other page might say, cool, I think this is relevant, and none of the other articles are covering this. I'm going to add a link to yours as well. So through these types of practices, what you can do is end up building links directly to this page. And again, anytime you link to a website links to your website, what those links tell Google is that those other website owners are trusting your content. They're trusting you. They're trusting what you have to say. And what Google will do is reward you with higher rankings. So anytime that you get a backlink, what we call a backlink to your website, that is the holy grail of SEO. Anytime you can get links pointing to your website, pointing to your content, cherish them because they are super valuable to your SEO ranking. And they're the fastest way that you can increase the performance on the SEO side for all of your content. Because anytime you get a link back to your website, it also increases what we call your domain authority. And so when you first create a website, you start with authority 0, and eventually you can end up with authority 100, theoretically, right? So Amazon has like a domain authority of like 98, and Google has an authority of 99. So it follows this, what we call this logarithmic scale. And so that means that for you to get from 0 to 1 or 0 to 10 is easier than it is to get from 40 to 50. When you're at the bottom of the scale, it's easier to go up, but as you get up, the curve is steeper. And so it's harder for you to move up the scale. Anyways, the point is that when you increase your domain authority, it increases the authority of all of your content, all of the pages on your website. So going back to the SEO, the specific SEO question, if you have too many categories or tags, get rid of them, delete them. If you only have one category, good. If you only have one tag, that's fine. You don't need 50 tags. You don't need 30 categories on your website, unless you're like the Huffington Post. If you're running a small blog for your niche course, you should probably only have one category. If your course is on financial advice, just have a financial advice category and don't create financial advice, home finances, auto finances, and don't do that, because what you're doing is you're just creating more pages on your website that aren't necessary. Get rid of the tags, as many as you can as possible. And then also with the content, this is something that we do with our client, is combine your content in as few pages as possible. So this idea that you have to create, and this is something that you'll read all the time, is post every day and create content all the time. What happens is you end up creating very thin content, and Google does not reward thin content. It's very rare that you'll find pages with less than 500 words, less than 700 words, ranking on page 1. They will if they're in a very obscure market, and let's say, for example, crypto, right? So if you're writing in the crypto space and you're writing about a new NFT that was just released, or you're writing about a new update to, Ethereum 2.0, whatever, then you have zero competition. You could write something super shallow and Google will rank that, right? Because Google wants to show a result. So, but for you, if you have a small little niche website, what you can do is combine a lot of the content together. So to give you an idea of this, again, going back to the financial advice topic, let's say that you had a post that you posted on Monday, which was financial planning is important because, and you list some ideas. Then you have another section, which is reducing your debt. And then the other post that you posted was, making your first investments. What you could do is think about a topic that could own all three of these posts, and instead create one post that would include all three of them, and view that page more as a definitive guide that anybody could refer to later over and over again with the information that you've posted, so that this page now answers as much as possible about a specific topic than that person having to go to multiple pages to get little tidbits of information.
Yeah, no, I love that example of the definitive guide. the post-COVID recovery. I'm sure I didn't get that right, the title, but I love that because not only is it topical, but it really jives with the second book, the second holistic wealth book that I'm writing, which is Holistic Wealth Art of Recovery from Disruption, which is actually available for pre-order now. And that definitive guide sounds like kind of like in the same vein, the same theme. So that's amazing. So there's so many things that you mentioned, just like in terms of getting the most out of backlinks. And of course, as you were talking, because I know how important that is. And there's real longevity in that too, right? Because I remember, this article that I wrote went viral. It was the basis of my book, Holistic Wealth. It's entitled, My Husband Died at Age 34. Here are 40 life lessons I learned from it. Yeah, that was the title. And I wrote it a few years after my husband died. And it got so many backlinks. I mean, it went viral. And I wrote that article in December 2017. And, viewers, listeners, if you want to go Google that right now, you'll see it's still at number one for the search terms, My Husband Died. So if you Google My Husband Died just on a whim, you'll see that article ranked number one. And it's been there since 2017, which is phenomenal. And I think it's just because of the sheer amount of backlinks it has. It has like over 150 backlinks. I mean, from 150 different websites. I don't know if that's still the same. I haven't checked. But, as you were talking about the importance of backlinks, that's what came to me. I was like, wow, that article, and then what the other question that came to me is, because that just happened randomly. People just connected to that article. The title was amazing. It was something very vulnerable, which I think is why it went viral, right? And I really, really spelled out why this was such a very vulnerable moment for me and what readers need to take away, like those 40 life lessons. But let's say, somebody has this new website or this new course and they want to get backlinks fairly quickly. I mean, it's hard to get a viral article. It's hard to repeat a viral article. I've never had a repeat of that, even though I've tried, because there's no formula. Can you, any ideas on how people can get backlinks fairly quickly and maybe high quality ones? And I know that's not easy when you're talking about top websites, like MSN, Yahoo. But I'm sure that's the next question that readers have in mind is, well, how do I score those? And, save for going, it's so funny. You have a very good case study on your website called the Pinterest trapping technique. And I read that technique a few days ago on your website, and people listening in, go to nerddigital.com and check out that Pinterest trapping technique. As I'm talking, I'm thinking, wow, that's probably a good idea for getting some quick backlinks. But can you tell us in terms of your experience, because I'm not very experienced in this, in terms of getting it set up quickly, what could be a few options for getting those needed backlinks?
Oof. So that's a big question. I mean, it's a bit of a pie in the sky dream, to think that you can very quickly get backlinks. It's not something that's easy to do. And that's why it's so highly rewarded. So because it's something that's hard to replicate, that's why Google still uses this. At least, us SEOs, we believe Google uses this, because I'm not sure if you know this, but there is no rule book to SEO. There is only tests and experiments, and then data that's collected from those tests and experiments to then create these hypotheses about what will work in SEO. There are tools that crawl the web, that try to imitate Google's crawler, so that we can find out how SEO works, the Google crawler works. But the truth is, nobody knows. Not even people inside Google know. Like the way the technology is set up, the way the algorithms are set up in there, based on what time of day it is, where you are, if you're on your phone, if you're walking, if you've searched for specific things in the past, if you are a specific age, all of those things will impact what your search results are. Okay, so don't think that this is easy. This is an easy thing to do. That's why I'm bringing that up. Now, if you want to go into execution, there's two really good things that you could do, especially if you're a course creator. So one of them, as I mentioned, was to take the modules that you have from your course and turn those into blog posts. The second idea is to create a glossary. And if you think about a glossary or wiki page, what this could be is the longest list possible. Let's say you can come up with 100 different terms that someone has to know or might want to know at some point in time when taking your course. And you can think of this as the 100 ideas on financial management or 100 terms for financial advice that you need to know. And in there, you can very quickly think of them as little tweets. You're just going to offer up these quick definitions. So you could financial statement, colon, a financial statement is whatever. Balance sheet, a balance sheet is whatever. Profit is, right? And you simply define all of these terms. If you can put a page together like that, which shouldn't be too hard if you're a course creator, you know your content very well, that should be something that you should be able to execute very quickly. And once you're done, it will look great. You'll have this really useful resource for people. You could share this with your partners. You could share this with people on the web. And people are likely to want to link to this because it's useful and it's helpful and it's interesting. So if you make a good design with it, that's a bonus. That can increase the likelihood that you'll get more links. That's the second idea. So the third one is for you to work with some partners and figure out who your partners are, what we call amplifiers. This is like a key step that you have to do. Even for your course launch, it's an effective way. And these amplifiers essentially are people that have an audience that speak about related or adjacent topics to yours. So for financial advice, for example, if you're more in the personal finance, you might speak with somebody that's in real estate. You might partner with somebody that's in gardening. You might partner with somebody that's in education, right? So there are some adjacent topics that are related to finance, but not directly. But that, from a personal perspective, they might also be interested in discussing those. So you also, another way of thinking of this is, okay, who has an audience that could benefit from learning more about some financial fundamentals, but that's not their core area. You can put together a list of those what we call amplifiers and create an article targeting them. So if you could come up with a topic, which it's beyond the scope of this conversation, but if you could come up with a topic for that page, then you could feature these people, and then you reach out to them and say, hey, so-and-so, I featured you on my blog post because I think, you're great at this, you're great at that, and great at this. Here's a link in case you want to check it out. That's a very quick and easy way for you to start getting some traction in SEO, because you'll put together something interesting. You'll put something interesting for the right people. And 3, it's likely that at least some of those people will want to link back to your content, or at the very least, they will share your content.
Yeah. And that's a good way of getting those needed backlinks as well in really fast and efficient ways. So that's amazing. So that would be one example of a blog post. And the glossary would be another example of a kind of blog post as well, right?
Correct.
And as we were talking, Marcio, I was thinking about ads, because then the conversation goes into, well, do I need paid Facebook ads? How much is my ad budget? How much do I need to spend on ads to get the traction that I need to have a 6-figure launch? And of course, I know that you also specialize in advising your clients on how to do this without having to do paid Facebook ads. And so I wanted to get your perspective on that, because I know, course creators have those questions in terms of, well, do I need to run ads? And if I don't, is that suicidal? Am I creating a situation where I have no chance of getting that traction if I don't have paid ads?
Yeah. So just to clarify, in my program, I do teach how to set up and scale with Facebook ads. But the idea there is that you're not spending all of your budget on Facebook ads. Actually, I think the core tenet of the program really is about growth.
Yeah.
We're focusing on your growth, and it's doing your growth in the most predictable way. So depending on where you are, paid ads, you may need paid ads or you may not. So let's say, for example, if you've built up a huge email list with 20,000 subscribers or 30,000 subscribers, it's likely that you won't need ads. You can use ads to scale this even further, but you probably don't need to get to 6 figures. Another thing is that if you don't have a list, if you simply don't have an email list, or you don't have, let's say, a Facebook group or somewhere where you've brought together a small community or people that are listening to you, it's going to be very nearly impossible for you to sell your course. You might sell it to a handful of people because it really is a numbers game at that point. So to answer your question about the Facebook ads can be very helpful. And one thing that you want to think about, this is actually something that I'm planning on executing now, is to be a little bit more of the long game when it comes to ads. And so your first approach might simply be to create an ad that's like a direct response ad. So you create an ad, and the ad says, here, buy this course today, on sale now. That's very direct, especially if you think about dating somebody. Back in the day when I was single, I could think about, let's say, a hypothetical situation where I see a girl and I like her, and I wouldn't just go up to her and ask her to marry me. That'd be insane. But if I said, hey, I'm heading over there to the soccer field. We're going to play soccer. Do you want to join us? That's like a first engagement, first type of conversation. At first, hey, we're going to the arcade next week. Do you want to join us? Hey, would you like to go to the movies with me? So little by little, you ask a little bit more of that person. You engage with them a little bit more until you're ready to pop the big question. And similarly with the sale, you kind of have to take a similar approach. Whereas you might, for the first time, when you show an ad to a person, the ad can actually be driving a person to a piece of content. So you can send them to a blog post if the blog post is valuable enough. And ideally, there's a lead magnet on that page that converts people. You can send them to a webinar, which again goes back to this idea of why webinars are interesting. So you can create an ad that promises a specific solution, and they get the solution through that webinar. And what that does is it then builds up your email list, so that you can then sell to these people later. So, because I said this idea of playing the long game with the ads is not to limit yourself of thinking strictly about that buy now ad, this bottom of the funnel ad. Think about what other content can you promote middle and top of the funnel that makes people aware, for example, that they have a specific issue, makes them maybe want this solution later. So let's say, for example, you have a top of the funnel, just did you know about these top ideas that you could be, these top things that you could be saving thousands of dollars on your taxes every year if you're in the finances? The person's like, no, I didn't know that. Tell me more. So they go to a blog post or go to a webinar. They engage with that content. And later, what you can do is you can remarket to these people. So what we call remarketing is showing them an ad based on a previous behavior. Once they've been to your site, even if they haven't clicked on an ad, if they've been to your site, if they've converted on a lead magnet, but they haven't made a purchase, for example, this is like e-commerce style. We've learned a lot of this from e-commerce businesses, is after they've taken a specific action, it's like, well, I know that they've downloaded a lead magnet, but they haven't watched my webinar, or they haven't booked a call, or they haven't made a purchase for my course or my book. Then I can show them an ad saying something that's more specific to them. If you market to this person, it's more likely, a few things are more likely. One, you already know that they're interested in you because they became a lead. So you're not showing your next ad to a cold audience. You're actually showing it to somebody you kind of know. What's likely to happen is your cost is likely to be lower as well, right? So if you show an ad to a person that already knows you, your cost is going to be lower, which your click-through rate is going to be higher, which then your sales are more likely to be higher as well. So that's one way that you can think about Facebook ads, and it's going to be slower for you to scale, but that's definitely a way that you can get there in a more profitable way.
Yeah, no, sounds good. And like, I know as you're talking, people listening in might be thinking about budgets and how much do I spend on Facebook ads. I've launched a book before, so I've had to do Facebook ads in terms of that launch. And I know it's specific to everyone's budget, specific to, how much you want to spend, how much you have to spend, and what you think that return will look like. And of course, also with your personal financial identity, because I've been talking about that quite a lot on this podcast. And I know you took the quiz, Marcio. And so, the first part of the question is any rough ballpark that you've seen in terms of ad budgets for Facebook ads that have been, kind of effective for that sum in terms of providing enough value. But I know people are thinking about that. And of course, the second part of my question is, just in closing, if you could just tell our audience what your results were on the personal financial identity test on that quiz that's available on the Institute on Holistic Wealth website, because that also, based on the course creators I've had, and I've had so many course creators on this podcast, they've described even their webinars and their conferences to me. And depending on your personal financial identity, whether you're minimalist or maximalist, it can sway from, I had champagne for all of my guests in my conference when I promoted my online course, to bare bones minimum launches. And both are, both can be amazingly successful, and both can be an equally rewarding experience for, your clients and your sales targets. So I'd just love to get into that with you too, because I think that's also important.
Yeah. So I can't give you a specific number because it really depends. But what I could tell you is that there's two key approaches that you want to take to this. And they go back to my previous answer. If you're going with an ad campaign, which is very direct, where you're just simply sending people to a page where you hope they buy, right? It's like a sales page. Then, like your book, for example, then what you need to think about is simply a math game. You really need to think about, what is the cost of your book, and then how much are you spending on ads, deduct whether or not you're going to pay for shipping or not, and just simply do the numbers so that you see whether it's going to be profitable for you or not. Now, as you show your ads to more people, and if you have more ad variations, what Facebook will do, all platforms do this, but Facebook will help you decide which ad to show to people. It'll test the ads for you. It'll display the ads for you. And ideally, what should happen is your cost per lead, or your cost per sale, in your case, should go down over time. So as it learns more, then it should get cheaper. So when you first start out with your ad campaign, maybe you're paying $10 a lead, $15 a lead, $20 a lead. But it's possible over time that can go down to 18 to 16 to $7 to $3 per sale. So that's one approach, is to really just do your numbers. And I actually have a free calculator that I can provide to your audience later if they want to do that. And then on the other side, it's to think about it more, if you're going with this more long-term approach where you're simply promoting your content and you're using budget to amplify and promote your content, that's a completely different approach. And to that one, you can just simply set aside a budget. Let's think about your annual revenue, and then you say, okay, I'm going to dedicate this much to marketing, and then of that marketing, I'm going to take a small portion of that, and I'm going to dedicate it to promoting the content that I'm creating, whether that be a new webinar, like you mentioned, whether that be a new blog post, a definitive guide, or whatever. You could, after you publish this thing and share it with your newsletter and everything, you can then use a platform like Facebook to amplify that to more people. And then do the second step, which I mentioned, which is to remarket to these people that already took action. So if they've already been to your page, if they've already downloaded Lead Magnet or whatever, then take the next step in inviting them to do the next step in the process, whether that's join a free course or take a webinar with you or book a call with you or join you on a retreat somewhere. I know that you're in Ottawa, so maybe you do a live event in Ottawa. Maybe that's the group that you want to show that ad to. So those are two different approaches that you can take to your defining your budget. Oh, and those are awesome. Like, I love those ideas. Yeah. And then the second question, which was my profile, I'm a minimalist. So I have no shame in telling you, Keisha, that I am cheap. I really think it, and I don't know where this comes from, this like childhood thing or where,
right.
I think that's why I got into SEO, why I got so attracted by SEO, is that when I learned about SEO and how you could get traffic to your site theoretically for free, because it's still taking you a lot of time and you have to hire, people to help you with it, graphic design, all that stuff. But I think the initial idea of getting free traffic was like, what? We could do that? Okay, yeah. I'm in.
Right.
Tell me more.
Right.
But yeah, that's my financial profile. I'm very much like a value buyer, I really want to get the most out of what I'm paying for. There are a few things that I'm a bit more bullish on, like training and courses. I spend a lot of money on that side. And if you were to look at my bank statement, you'd be like, what? You're not a minimalist, Marcio.
Right.
I think overall, I might be a minimalist as a result of the quiz, but there are definitely areas in my life where I'm not like, it's my wife's birthday yesterday and I spent as much as I could. Right. So in some areas of my family, for example, there's some areas where I go all out, but other areas I couldn't care less about certain things that I just don't spend in those areas.
Yeah, no, and those are some great insights too, especially as it relates to minimalism and SEO, because you're right. I think that's why so many of us get hooked on SEO, is that notion of that free traffic and not having to always be spending on ads everywhere. So that's amazing. And thank you so much for that insight. So Marcio, we're wrapping up, and I just want to give you a chance to tell our audience where to reach you, your website and social media. Can you just let the audience know where to reach you before we go?
Yes, for sure. You can reach me at nerddigital.com. That's nerddigital.com. Or you can hit me up on Twitter as well. I'm at marciosantos.com, at Marcio Santos on Twitter. Or send me an email, marcio@nerddigital.com. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, for if you have a course that's ready to go, or if you've launched before and you need more help, or you're trying to scale your sales with your courses, hit me up. This is something that I'm dedicated to. I highly believe that human connection is more powerful than AI, and AI will never be able to disrupt human connection. And that's what you deliver in a course. It's your ability to help somebody through human connection. And so it's something that we're dedicated to here at Nerd Digital, and we want to do more of, is help more course creators get out there and scale and help more people.
Absolutely. And thank you so much once again for being here and sharing your knowledge with us, your journey. I think this was an amazing episode for people who are trying, to scale a course or just thinking about launching a course soon. And so, as Marcio just said, you can find him on his website or social media, or just sending him an email. So thank you so much for joining us today, Marcio. It was amazing having you.
You're welcome. And thank you, Keisha, for having me.
Thank you for joining us this week on Holistic Wealth with Keisha Blair. Make sure to visit our website, KeishaBlair.com, where you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, or via RSS, so you will never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. Are you a member of the Institute on Holistic Wealth? If not, what are you waiting for? Go to Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to choose your membership plan and join. As a member, you get so many perks. Free worksheets, advice, coaching, and a member's workshop to design an intentionally designed life. You need to figure out your life purpose? Take the Build Your Life Purpose Portfolio online self-paced course. You're struggling with all your money decisions? Take the free financial identities quiz and then take the course. You recently had a breakup, job loss, or experienced the death of a loved one? Take the Holistic Healing course. You need an overall plan to achieve holistic wealth? We will help you figure out your holistic wealth blueprint. And of course, if you want to start making money by helping others achieve holistic wealth, become a certified holistic wealth consultant. Regardless of what career you've got, the Institute will show you how to increase your income and walk in your purpose. The sooner you join, the sooner you start to achieve a more holistically wealthy lifestyle. And you're going to want to stay for a very long time. So go to Institute on Holistic Wealth /memberships to join. If you haven't read the book yet, pick up a copy of the award-winning, best-selling Holistic Wealth 32 Life Lessons to help you find purpose, prosperity, and happiness.